All right, so it's noon. We're going to go ahead and start our webinar today. Um, what we're going to do today is very quickly run through how to use the library to approach doing kind of a very basic research assignment. As we go throughout, if you have any questions, chat those, and at some point I'll take a look at those and make sure that we answer any questions you might have. We also have some other library folks in our session today who can also chime in and answer any questions that might come through. But we'll make sure at the end that we have enough time to go through and answer those questions. So one of the first things I want to do is remind everybody how to get to the library's website. There are lots of different ways that you can do this, and just do whatever is most comfortable for you, however you prefer to access the library's website. So I'm going to give you a couple of options that I think you might use to find it. So first of all, I think everyone is familiar with the college's website, right? lacollege.edu. We come here a lot. And in the middle of the page there, under the Academics tab, you'll find a link that will direct you to the library's website. For those of you that come immediately to this screen, to the portal, to do anything related to your studies, you'll find on the left-hand side of the page, in the quick links box, there is also a link to the library homepage. And then if all else fails, if you just Google Louisiana College Library, the first result that should come up in that list would also bring you to the library's website. So all those ways will bring you to this particular page. And certainly there's a lot going on this page that I would encourage you to come back and take a look at if you have time, explore, see what's here, become familiar with the layout of this page. But today, what we're going to do is essentially very quickly bypass this because I have in my mind a certain situation that I think you'd be facing, like in an English 102 class, where you have to write some kind of essay that incorporates library research. And if this is your first time ever using the library, this page might be a little overwhelming. And so I want to direct you to a place that is a little less overwhelming, that will very quickly get you into some really good library resources to do that type of assignment. So in the menu at the top of the page, you'll see under that Find drop-down menu, there is a link labeled Research and Course Guides. So under Find, go to Research and Course Guides, and that will bring you to this page, which lists several research guides that are geared to doing research in any number of disciplines. So for every major academic division of the college, we have at least one guide to help you do research in that area. So the most basic level would be what we've called research quick starts. So you'll see a couple of those listed at the very top of the page there. So if you're doing research in allied health, whether that's your major or not, you can click on that guide and it will bring you to a page that lists what we think are the most relevant, and in some cases, the best resources for you to use to do research in those areas. And as you scroll down through that list, you'll also see some course guides. So for courses that have a research-based assignment that we've connected with the professors in that area, we've created some guides that will speak to that specific assignment and the steps of that assignment and connect you to relevant library resources. Where we're going to go today is to this multi-purpose kind of generic general topic guide called Library Research 101. And it's a little different than those other guides. Again, it's not really geared to a specific assignment. It's not geared to discipline-specific research. The idea is if this is your first time approaching doing library and the research, these are some things that you should consider and some resources that you might want to use to do that basic research assignment. So the tabs on the left-hand side are going to structure how we progress through our time together. So the first thing we're going to do is click on that Getting Started tab. And there's a lot of information there, and I'm not going to read it, but essentially what I encourage you to do when you get a research-based assignment and you have to use library resources, the first thing you should do is just look at your assignment, study it very closely, because a lot of times your instructor will give you very specific information about the types of sources you're supposed to use, the number that you're supposed to use, and that will inform how you approach the library, what resources you use that we have. So if you need articles, you'll go to a database where you can find article content. If you need books, then you'll go to the library's catalog. So really pay attention to those assignment instructions so that even before you click on the library's website, you kind of have some idea of what you're looking for. That last little section there is one that I want to focus in on for just a second, and that is when you're doing these assignments, sometimes you'll be given a topic that you have to research, but sometimes you won't. So in that English 102 maybe situation, you're told to pick a topic. Some people love that, some people hate it, but regardless of whether you love it or hate it, the thing to remember with that is you want to make sure that what you're researching, so your research topic or your research question, however you want to think about that, make sure that it's appropriate for the scope of your assignment length. So if you have to write a 3 to 5 page essay, you want to make sure that you're not researching something that's very broad that you'll get a lot of information back on. You want to make sure that it's appropriate. So you don't want to be inundated with information, but you want to have enough information so that you can actually complete your assignment. So on the flip side of that, make sure that your research question, your research topic is not so specific that you just don't find anything. So to help you out with that, we have certain types of information available to you in the library that can help you find a topic that is appropriate to the length of your assignment. And so we're going to click on this using background information to direct us to those types of sources. So generally, when we're talking about background information, you're going to find that in information sources like dictionaries, encyclopedias, handbooks, manuals. In the library world, we call these reference materials, which generally means when we're talking about print information that these things are sometimes pretty expensive. So we kind of protect them by making sure that people can't check them out and potentially lose them. But we also want to make sure that everybody has access to that information because it's helpful for a variety of reasons. And those are listed there for you. So one thing that these types of information sources can do for you is help you learn a lot about a topic really quickly. So if it's something you're really not familiar with, you can just read a very short article and you're much more informed as you think about investigating that topic a little bit more in depth. So they can also help you refine your research topic. So if you're researching something that's pretty broad, you can go to one of these sources and use like the structure of that article, like the headings or the subheadings, to help you focus in on a topic that is much more manageable for the scope of your assignment. If you're kind of focusing on something really, really specific, you can also use these types of sources to broaden out the scope of your research question so that, again, you can find a good amount of information to complete that assignment. And then as an added bonus, a lot of these types of sources will include at the end like a bibliography or a works cited page, and you can use those to kind of jumpstart your own research. So here are a couple of databases that we have available to you in the library that include these types of information sources. So we're going to go to Gale Virtual Reference Library, and I've already got that open because sometimes GVRL can be a little bit slow to load. And at this point, I want to mention that if you are off campus and you click on a database link like this, you'll have to log in. And so the login that you want to use when you come to this screen that asks you to provide some kind of credential would be your network username and password. So that's going to be your first name dot last name, so like you use to make your email address for the college, but you're going to leave off the @lacollege.edu, so just your first name dot last name. And then the default password for that is that date of birth combination that's the 3 letters of the month, the first letter is capitalized, 2-digit day, and 4-digit year. And follow all of that with an asterisk, and you get that by hitting Shift-8 on your keyboard. And it's very important that you're using that first name, not last name, as your username, and then that default birth date combination, precisely as we talked about it, in order to pass through. And if you have any troubles with that, you can contact us, and we'd be happy to help you resolve that and get you into using library resources online. So once we get into the databases, what I'm going to do, so the topic that I'm interested in today is something about social media. I realize that's way too broad for my assignment. That needs to be 3 to 5 pages. So what I'm going to do is use this type of source to help me narrow down the focus of my research. So I'm just going to type in social media. And notice that I put that in quotes, and I did that for a very specific reason. What that tells the database that I'm searching here is that this exact phrase, social media, has to come back in my search results. So if I didn't have those quotes, the database is smart enough to know that I want the phrase social media. But just to make sure I'm not getting back sources where those two words are totally far removed from each other, not as that phrase, I put the quotes around it. So if you're researching a topic where that phrase needs to be preserved, keep that little trick in mind that you need to put quotes around it. So here are a couple of sources to use. I'm going to click on this second one here because it's a little bit shorter. And here is that kind of like table of contents. These are headings that are used to organize this brief article on social media. That third one kind of looks interesting to me. So as I go down here, I see that my search terms are highlighted there, but the second paragraph kind of intrigues me that social media has created some problems for high school students. So I'm going to use that as my research topic, my very focused research question. I want to know about the impact of social media on high school students. So using the encyclopedia here, I was able to very quickly focus in my research question on something that's very manageable. And just to kind of prove to you that I'm not making things up, here's that bibliography at the end of that article. So these are additional sources that you might want to look into to jumpstart your research, but you certainly don't have to do that. I'm going to go back to my guide here. We've got our background information. So now what we want to do is find some additional content to use in our research. So if you want books, or you need to have books for your research, these are a couple of places where you could start. We have a lot of different ebook databases listed in our A to Z list of databases, which I'll mention in just a second too. But one place that you can come is to our local catalog, which we call LCCat, and this is what that looks like. And so I'm going to take the same approach. I'm going to type in social media using my quotes to see what materials I have in this particular database related to social media. So some things you'll notice as you look at this list. Some of them will say available online, and that's actually an ebook, which you can tell by the little descriptor here under the image as well. And you can click on that link and it will direct you to that particular book online in the database where it lives in our library resources. You'll also see some in the list that look a little different. So this jab, 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 right hook doesn't have that link, and instead it gives you the shelf location. And so this is a physical book that lives here in the library. And especially for online students, we want you to know that this material, even though it's here on our campus, is also available to you. If you find something in our local collection here that's a physical item that anyone can borrow, then you can connect with us and let us know that you want that, and we'll be happy to mail that to you. And then you're just responsible to send that back to us, and so you'd have to pay for the cost of postage to send that back to us. But we're happy to send you physical items in our collection so that you have access to that material as well. If you come across something like a book like this and you see that there's just one chapter in there that you want, let us know that and we'll just scan that and send that to you as well. But we want you to know that the physical materials here in our library on campus are also available to you, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure you get what you need. So back to our guide here. We're going to and click on the tab over here for finding articles, and this is where we're going to camp out for quite a bit. Because a lot of times, especially as online students, this is the type of information that you'll be required to find and use. And so we want to make sure that you are very comfortable with knowing where to go to find articles and how to most effectively get that type of content. So if you can, we always recommend using subject-specific databases. So if you're doing research in religion, we recommend that you use a religion database. And again, you go back to the course guides, the research guides, and you'll find the religion research quick start guide, and there you can find some databases that you can search for religion. Do the same if you're in nursing. If you're doing a research assignment for nursing, go to a nursing database. In psychology, go to a psychology database, and so on and so forth. You can also see our entire list of databases on this second link, the A to Z list, and you can filter and sort that any way you want to by, by subject. So you can see all of our psychology databases listed in that spot. But if you just really aren't sure about where to go to get started, then we recommend going to kind of these databases that are a little bit more generic, and that By that I mean they're multidisciplinary. They have something for everybody. And so Academic Search Complete is a great multidisciplinary database to go to. And what we want to do now is really focus on creating a really good search that will get us relevant information for our topic of the impact of social media on teenagers, on high school students, without really inundating us. Because if we just typed in social media here, we would probably get back literally tens of thousands of results, and we don't want that. We don't want to go through all of that. And we can avoid that just by being very intentional and very smart in the way that we structure our search. So one of the first things I'm going to do is type in social media in that first search box, and I'm going to select from that drop-down menu subject terms, and I'll explain that when we get into our result list what that did. But essentially what I'm telling the database is this: our special phrase social media has to appear in this section of the records in this database. The next thing I want to do is get the idea of the impact. And so sometimes when you're doing research, what you want to do is think of synonyms or other related words that might mean about the same thing, to kind of make sure that you're casting a broad net to get that idea. And so impact or effect or influence, these all kind of mean the same thing for us. And so I want that to show up in the title of my results. And I just know that from experience that that's the best way to search for that particular idea. And you'll see between those words, I'm using the word or, so those are called operators, and that's just a way to tell the database that the word impact or the word effect or the word influence can show up in my result list. It doesn't matter to me. Any one of those is acceptable. I'll take it. And then the little asterisk at the end of those words tells the database that it can have any kind of ending. So it can be impact, the word impacts, plural. It can be impactful, so on and so forth. But that's one way to capture all those additional words without having to actually type them all in. And then the last thing I want to do is get in the idea of the high school students. So I'm just going to use, teen or adolescent or youth. So following the same type of logic that we use in that second search box, I'm going to put that in there. And in this case, I don't care where that shows up. I just want that idea to show up in my result list. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and execute this search, but realize that we're not quite done here. So by thinking through our research question and using the most important words for us in our search boxes up there and telling the database they need to show up in certain areas, we have 83 results. And so to me, that's a whole lot better than tens of thousands of results that could potentially come back if we just put in social media. But we can actually bring this list down just a little bit as well through using the limiters. So we could have selected some of these options back on that first page, but I just wanted us to get in and see the results first. So over on the left-hand side, you have all these different ways that you can limit. So I'll just kind of scroll down so you can see all these different ways that you can take these initial set of results and kind of pare them down based upon all these different facets. What we're going to do is check the box scholarly peer-reviewed journals. So since we're in an academic setting, we want to make sure we're using academic content for our research. And by checking that box, we're going to eliminate the few things that maybe didn't match. These could have been things from magazines or other trade publications that really just don't fit our assignment. And so we got rid of those. And so now we're down to 78. We're also going to change the publication date. We want to make sure that we're using material that's very recent. And so we're going to limit this to the past 5 years. So by using that little slider bar or the boxes there, you can eliminate things that are maybe too old for your research. And so now we're down to 70 results. Another thing you could potentially do to reduce this list down even further is to check the full text box. So what that means is by checking that, you're going to eliminate resources that you cannot see immediately on the screen in front of you. So that brought us down to 30. And so in most cases, that's probably fine. You'll still find enough relevant resources to complete your assignment. And you'll see on all of these, there's going to be either a PDF full text link. And so you would click on that and you would see the PDF. That's going to be the entire article on the screen immediately for you, or an HTML full text or something like that. I'm going to uncheck that. I can also just eliminate that from my limiters up here. Because I want to see some things that potentially I don't have immediate access to. So as I go down through my list here, I'm going to click on this very first title, the social media seesaw, and just explain to you what you're seeing on the screen here. So right in the middle, in the big bold text, that's the title of the article. You have the author. This is the person who wrote this article, the source. So this is the journal that it appears in, and then all this other information that you need to know when you're using this for your research. So that's the date that it was published, the volume, the issue, the pages, and all of that. And then here, just below that, you have subject terms. So remember when we did this search, we said our phrase social media has to show up in subject terms. And so you'll see that it's bolded there as our first subject term. And I tell people, think about these subject terms like you think of social media hashtags, right? Because we all use those when we're posting things on Twitter. So for example, last night I had tacos for dinner, and so I put a picture of my tacos and say they were delicious, and I put my hashtags, hashtag Taco Tuesday, hashtag Tuesday dinner. And so if I click on my hashtag Tuesday dinner, I'll see what everybody else had for dinner last night. And so these subject terms kind of work in the same way. By clicking on any one of these, I will get back all the other articles in this database that have that same descriptor applied to it. And that can be very helpful if you're researching something very specific that has a subject term that's also very specific and matches it very closely. So several semesters ago, I was helping somebody do research for the impact that women had in Germany during the Second World War. And believe it or not, we found a subject term that matched that. And so by clicking on that, we got back very relevant results very quickly. And so that's how that can work for you. Down below those, you'll find an abstract. So that's a summary of the article. You can read through that, decide if this is what you want, if it's going to be helpful for you in research or not. If it is, great. If not, you move on to the next. I'll mention the DOI because in a lot of the style guidelines that are used here at the college, so MLA, APA, and Turabian, you'll be asked to provide the DOI, which is the digital object identifier, and that's just kind of an online location, so it's very similar to URL, but that's just a very stable identifier for this particular article so that if someone wants to go and find it on their own, they can do that using that little text there. Over on the right-hand side, I'll mention these tools. So Google Drive. So if you like Google Drive and you use that a lot for things, you can actually place the PDF of an article into your Google Drive for use later. You can add things to a folder, so that's a really neat way as you're doing research, maybe as you have a little bit of time, you can put some relevant articles into a folder, and then when it's time for you to move on to something else, email that folder to yourself, and you have that all collected and preserved. If you wanted to take that a step further, you could create an EBSCO account by signing in here, and you can actually use your Google credentials to do that, so that makes it even easier. And that will allow you to create a permanent folder where you can store things. So you can make an EN 102 folder and put your articles in there and know that you can go back there and find that research that you've done. Print, email, save, I think is pretty self-explanatory. Permalink, by clicking on this, it will create just above the title of the article a link that you can use to put into your works cited page, your reference list, your bibliography, whatever it is that you're doing, if your professor wants you to have that. So what you don't want to do is copy the URL that's up here in the address bar because it's super long and it's temporary. So whenever someone clicks on that link, it will bring them to an error page rather than when they click on this link, it will bring them right back to this page. So if you need a stable URL for your bibliography or for using your references, that's how you'll get that. The last tool I want to mention is this Cite button. By clicking that, it will open up in the middle of the screen here, this particular article formatted for all of these different style guidelines. So as you scroll down through here, you'll very quickly come across one that you may be using. So here is APA. And here's how I encourage people to use this. First of all, I would say do use this because it's a great time saver. You can just copy and paste this into your Word document, and you're well on your way to your works cited page being done. But I would say use this with caution because these things are machine generated. So you want to make sure that the formatting there is correct. So you want to go back to your manual and make sure that the right elements are in there, the punctuation is correct, capitalization is correct, but do use it to save time so that you don't make typos, and just go back and make sure that it's formatted correctly. So I'm going to go back to my result list, and For those articles in my list that don't necessarily have that PDF full text available, we have a request full text link. And so when you click on that, it opens up a form that you can fill out. And it's really basic. We just need to know who you are and what your email address is so that when we get this content, we can send it to you. So you'll fill that out. And one thing we want to highlight here is that make sure when you're using this, use your college email address, because that's how we have to communicate with you. So make sure you're using that so that we can get this to you as quickly as possible. But by filling out that form, what happens is we get that request, and then we will go and we'll find this article for you. We'll ask the library that does have it to send us a copy, and then we'll turn around and send that copy to you. So do realize that takes time. So we say budget, a good, 3 to 5 days to be able to get that content. Although, sometimes it can take a lot less time. But just realize that in those types of situations, there's a whole process involved, and so we need to have the time to be able to get that content and get it to you. But I will say this: that if you're really crunched for time, and you just want to make sure and do your due diligence, what you can do is just copy and paste that title of the article into Google and see if it isn't available full text somewhere online. I actually Googled this article and the one below it, and those two articles, even though they don't say they're full text in this database, those are actually freely available online as a PDF through the publisher. So when you do that, do make sure that you're using a legitimate copy. So look for URLs that end in .edu or .gov. Make sure that you're getting a legitimate copy of that particular resource for use in your own paper. Otherwise, if you just don't think it's a legitimate copy, fill out the form, and we'll do our best to get that to you as quickly as we can. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to my guide here very, very quickly. And another thing I want to mention is about citing sources. So we kind of mentioned this a little bit, looking at that citation generator, but always remember to cite your sources when you're using them in your work. That's just what we do. We want to give credit to the people whose ideas and work and information that we're using in our own papers. We just want to do the right thing and let people know that those aren't necessarily our ideas. We're borrowing them from somebody else. And so we have, in our academic world, different ways to do that. So depending upon the discipline that you're in, you can use any one of these library-created quick guides to, again, help you verify that citation that you're getting from the library database. So we'll find that online article, and here's a pattern for us and an example. So we'll just make sure that the citation we're getting from the database kind of aligns with and matches what we're seeing here. You can also use the manuals. We have copies of those here in the library. So if you are on campus and can and want to use one of those are available to you. But the point being, just make sure that you're citing your sources that you're using, and just doing the right thing, doing the ethical thing to give credit where credit is due. So last of all, we want to make sure that you know that we are here and available to help you. So today, we just very quickly scratched the surface of how to use the library to get started in doing research. So if you get into things and you find you're just not getting the results you want, or you just, again, are just kind of totally lost and I need some extra help to get started on things, please do reach out to us. That's why we're here. We've tried to make ourselves as accessible to you as possible. So you can chat with us, you can text with us, email us, create an appointment. So if you want to get some additional one-on-one time with a library staff member to help you with your research, we can do that. We can do that virtually if you want to. But the point is, we're here to help you. We want to help you. And it's not cheating to ask for extra help, to be sure that you're getting the types of resources that your professors are expecting you to use, that we know we have, that can help you do well in your assignments. So that's my very quick introduction. I'm gonna take a look, I hope, and see if we have any chats coming through, any questions. Okay. I'm not seeing anything. So again, if you have any questions that you can think of later on, please do feel free to connect with us. So on our library website, under our help menu, under contact us. Those are all the different ways that you can connect with us. So please feel free to connect anytime you want to. We're happy to help you. And I want to thank you for joining us today for our webinar.